Switzerland should be poor. Think about it. It's landlocked. No ocean access, no major port, no natural resources to speak of, no oil, no significant mineral deposits, no vast agricultural land. It sits wedged between four larger, more powerful countries: France, Germany, Italy, Austria, with no natural buffer except mountains that make commerce and transport expensive. It has four official languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh, which by most historical measures is a recipe for political fragmentation, not national cohesion. And yet, Switzerland has a GDP per capita of over $116,000, the third highest in the world, in a country of 8.8 million people. It manages over $5 trillion in global private wealth. It controls between 30 and 60% of global trading in oil, metals, and grains. And it has done this consistently for over 2 centuries without fighting a single war. Switzerland didn't break the rules of economic geography. It rewrote them. Today we're going to understand exactly how. Let's start with the geography, because Switzerland turned its biggest disadvantage into its greatest advantage. The Alps are not just mountains. For most of European history, they were the only reliable crossing point between northern and southern Europe. Whoever controlled the Alpine passes controlled the trade routes. Switzerland controlled the passes. For centuries, the Swiss charged tolls, provided guides, offered banking services to merchants moving goods between the Mediterranean and northern Europe. The mountains that should have isolated Switzerland instead made it indispensable. This is the first lesson Switzerland teaches the world: geography is not destiny. Context is everything. The same feature that makes a country seem peripheral can, under the right circumstances, make it the center of everything. The mountains also provided something else: natural defense. Switzerland was extraordinarily difficult to invade. While its neighbors spent centuries fighting each other, destroying capital, killing young men, and resetting economies to zero, Switzerland stayed intact. Stability compounded for 200 years, and compound interest, whether financial or historical, is the most powerful force in economics. In 1815, at the Congress of Vienna, the peace conference that redrew Europe after the Napoleonic Wars, Switzerland's permanent neutrality was formally recognized by the major European powers. This was not idealism, it was strategy. By declaring itself neutral, Switzerland made itself useful to everyone and threatening to no one. Every European power preferred a neutral Switzerland to a Swiss territory controlled by a rival. The consequences were extraordinary. When Europe went to war in 1914, a war that destroyed the economies of France, Germany, Britain, and Austria-Hungary simultaneously, Switzerland stayed open for business. Its banks kept operating, its factories kept producing, its trading houses kept trading. When Europe went to war again in 1939, the same thing happened. While the continent burned, Switzerland accumulated capital. Neutrality meant Switzerland never had to rebuild, it kept compounding. There is a darker side to this story, which we will come to. Switzerland's neutrality allowed it to trade with regimes that other nations had sanctioned. The business of staying neutral in a world at war was sometimes morally ambiguous, but economically, the results were unambiguous. 2 centuries of uninterrupted stability produced something that money alone cannot buy: institutional trust. In 1934, Switzerland passed the Federal Act on Banks and Savings Banks. This law made it a criminal offence for Swiss bankers to disclose client information to third parties, including foreign governments. Banking secrecy was born. The timing was not accidental. Europe was in political and economic crisis. The Great Depression had destroyed confidence in financial institutions across the continent. Germany was beginning to seize the assets of political opponents. Capital needed somewhere safe to go. It went to Switzerland. Wealthy Europeans, and eventually wealthy people from every corner of the world, moved their assets into Swiss accounts. The country's combination of political stability, legal protections, neutrality, and banking secrecy made it the world's premier financial safe haven. Today, despite significant reforms to banking secrecy following international pressure after 2008, Switzerland still manages over $5 trillion in cross-border private wealth. Zurich and Geneva are two of the three largest wealth management centers in the world. UBS, which absorbed Credit Suisse in a government-backed rescue in 2023, is Europe's largest wealth manager. The banking machine that was built in 1934 for reasons that were partly strategic and partly moral ambiguity still runs today. Here is something that almost never appears in the standard story of Swiss wealth. Switzerland controls somewhere between 30 and 60% of global trade in oil, metals, and agricultural commodities. But not Switzerland the country, Switzerland the location, specifically the cantons of Zug and Geneva, where the world's largest commodity trading firms are headquartered. Glencore, Trafigura, Vitol, these are not household names, but they move more oil, copper, coal, and grain around the world than most national governments. And they do it from Switzerland, a country with no oil, no copper mines, no grain fields to speak of. Why Switzerland? Well, it's the same reasons everything else is in Switzerland. Political neutrality means the firms can trade with any country regardless of international sanctions. Low taxes. Zug has one of the most attractive corporate tax rates in Europe. Discretion, stability, legal certainty. The commodity trading sector alone contributes around 4% to Swiss GDP. That's roughly equivalent to the entire mechanical engineering sector. A landlocked country with no natural resources became the world's largest commodity trading hub. That is not an accident. That is Switzerland applying the same logic it applied to banking, to watches, to chocolate. Find the thing the world needs, position yourself as the indispensable intermediary, and extract value from the movement of goods rather than from their production. If banking built Switzerland's wealth in the 20th century, pharmaceuticals are building it in the 21st. In 2024, Swiss pharmaceutical and chemical exports reached 149 billion Swiss francs. That's 52% of Switzerland's total exports. More than half of everything Switzerland sells to the world is medicine and chemicals. The numbers are honestly staggering for a country of 8.8 million people. Roche and Novartis, both headquartered in Basel, are among the 10 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Together, they invest over 9.6 billion Swiss francs annually in research and development in Switzerland alone. The sector generates 5.4% of Swiss GDP directly and supports over 300,000 jobs when indirect employment is counted. How did a small alpine country become a global pharmaceutical superpower? The same way it became everything else. A combination of world-class universities, Zurich is consistently ranked among the top 10 engineering universities in the world. A highly skilled multilingual workforce, low taxes, stable regulation, and the kind of institutional environment where long-term investment makes sense. Switzerland doesn't discover drugs by accident. It created the conditions where drug discovery is more likely to happen and more likely to stay than anywhere else. There is one more piece of the Swiss puzzle that gets almost no attention outside academic economics. The federal system. Switzerland has 26 cantons, semi-autonomous regions that set their own tax rates, manage their own budgets, and compete with each other for businesses and residents. This sounds like it should create chaos. Instead, it created one of the most efficient governance structures in the world. When cantons compete for businesses, they have strong incentives to keep taxes low and services high. A company considering Switzerland doesn't just choose the country, it chooses the canton. Cantons know this. The result is a country with one of the lowest VAT rates in Europe, 8.1%, relatively low corporate taxes that vary by canton, and public debt of approximately 38% of GDP, one of the lowest ratios among advanced economies. The Swiss government also uses direct democracy extensively. Citizens vote on major policy decisions in frequent referendums. This forces pragmatism. Policies that are economically destructive don't survive popular votes. Switzerland is essentially running a competition between 26 mini-governments, and the citizens are the judges. The efficiency that emerges from that competition is one reason Swiss public services, transport, healthcare, education consistently rank among the best in the world at a fraction of the cost of comparable countries. No conversation about Swiss wealth is complete without the watch. Switzerland exports approximately $25 billion in watches annually. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Omega, Swatch. But the watch is not just a product, it's a proof of concept. The Swiss watch industry nearly died in the 1970s and 80s when Japanese manufacturers, led by Seiko and Citizen, introduced cheap, accurate quartz technology that made traditional Swiss mechanical watches look overpriced and obsolete. Switzerland's response was not to compete on price. It was to move entirely upmarket. The Swatch Group was created to anchor the low end of the market while protecting the prestige of Swiss watchmaking at the high end. The strategy worked. Within a decade, Swiss watches were not competing with Japanese watches. They were competing with jewelry, with art, with status symbols. A Rolex is not a timekeeping device, it is a portable store of value. The lesson Switzerland keeps teaching is the same: when you cannot compete on volume, compete on value. When you cannot compete on price, compete on meaning. Switzerland has been teaching this lesson for 200 years. But Switzerland's model is under pressure. Banking secrecy, the foundation of the private wealth machine, has been systematically eroded since 2008, when the United States successfully pressured Swiss banks to disclose accounts held by American citizens evading taxes. The automatic exchange of tax information, now standard between most developed countries, has fundamentally changed the calculus of keeping money in Switzerland. Switzerland's neutrality, its most sacred political principle, has also come under strain. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 forced Switzerland to make an unprecedented decision: participate in international sanctions against Russia. For a country that had maintained strict neutrality through 2 world wars, this was a watershed moment, And in 2025, the United States imposed a 39% tariff on Swiss goods, more than double the rate applied to EU countries. For an economy where pharmaceuticals alone account for over 50% of exports, the exposure is significant. The 5 paradoxes that made Switzerland rich are still largely intact, but they are no longer unquestioned. The question for the next generation of Swiss economists and politicians is not whether Switzerland is rich. It's whether the specific formula that made it rich can survive a world that is changing faster than it ever has. 5 paradoxes: no coastline, yet controls global trade; no resources, yet exports more medicine than almost anyone; 4 languages, yet functions with rare efficiency; permanently neutral, yet profited from every war around it; 8 million people, yet manages $5 trillion in global wealth. Switzerland is the most instructive country in the world for anyone interested in how wealth actually gets built. Not through resources, not through size, not through military power, through positioning, through trust, through the sustained ability to make yourself indispensable. Here is my question for you. Which of the 5 paradoxes surprised you most? The geography, the neutrality, the banking, the commodities, or the watches? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every one. New episode every Thursday.